Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Avi, and I help run events here at the Strand. Before we launch into a discussion of Jessamyn Stanley's new book, Yoke, My Yoga of Self-Acceptance, I'd like to share a little bit of history about the Strand. The Strand was founded in 1927 by Benjamin Bass on 4th Avenue's Book Row. Searching from Union Square to Astor Place, Book Row gradually dwindled from 48 bookstores until after 93 years, the Strand is the sole survivor, now run by third-generation owner Nancy Bass Whiteness. We want to thank all of you for your support. Without our loyal community of book lovers and authors like Jessamyn and Jennifer, we wouldn't be here today. Tonight, we're thrilled to have with us Jessamyn Stanley for the launch of her newest book, Yoke, My Yoga of Self-Acceptance. Jessamyn Stanley is an internationally acclaimed voice in wellness, highly sought after for her insights on 21st century yoga and intersectional identity. She is the founder of The Underbelly, a streaming wellness app and community. She is co-host of the podcast Dear Jessamyn and co-founder of We Go High, a North Carolina-based cannabis justice initiative. She is a regular contributor to Self magazine, has been featured on the cover of UK's Cosmopolitan magazine, and covered in the New York Times, Vogue, Glamour, Sports Illustrated, among many other domestic and international media outlets. She's also the author of Everybody Yoga, Let Go of Fear, Get on the Mat, Love Your Body. Joining Jessamyn in conversation tonight is Jennifer Weiner. Jennifer Weiner is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of 18 books, including Big Summer, Mrs. Everything, Good in Bed, and an essay collection, Hungry Hearts, Adventures in Life, Love, and Writing. A graduate of Princeton University and contributor to the New York Times opinion section. Jennifer lives with her family in Philadelphia. So without further ado, please welcome Jessamyn Stanley and Jennifer Weiner to the stage.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm sure I speak for many, many, many of us, Jessamyn, when I tell you that you are an inspiration and a heroine and somebody who got me on my mat, for real, and made me, made me feel seen, made me feel part of a community, made me feel like I belonged in those classes, like I belonged on that mat, like I wasn't a faker, like I could be there too. I will always be grateful to you for that and for Everybody Yoga. And I do those flows and I don't do them very elegantly, but I do them. And now that I have read Yoke, I am going to be doing more breathing and thinking more about that. So the first thing I want to ask you is talk to us about the title of this book, because there's a great story about why this book is called Yoke.
Yes. So first of all, I knew it was called Yoke. This was actually, I think, the first essay that I wrote. The first essay in this book is called Yoke, but spelled Y-O-L-K, yolk like the center of an egg. And I knew that the book was going to be called Yoke, Y-O-K-E, but I was worried that my publisher would not agree. And so we actually went through many rounds of titles where I pitched different titles thinking oh, maybe, I don't know if they're going to get it, if it's going to really resonate. And then as soon as I finally admitted what I knew it was yes, this is the truth, because I had to name it after something that really helped me to understand so much about, not just about yoga, but about myself and about what it means to really see yourself. And this is what happened. So when Everybody Yoga came out, I got an email from someone who had read the book, and she'd noticed that I'd misspelled the word yoke in the book. I used the word yoke, meaning union, meaning to bring together, to join together. And in the case of yoga, yoke is joining together the light and the dark within you. It's bringing together the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's gazing upon every single piece of yourself. It's just vomiting up yourself and then accepting all the mess that lie therein. But she reached out because I'd used this word yoke, but I'd spelled it Y-O-L-K, like yolk, like the center of an egg. And I was horrified because okay, first of all, you know, Jennifer, that like you go through so many rounds of edits that I was like, bitch, how did we not catch this? Like there's so many eyes that were on this. But at the same time, I was like, I mean, shit happens, life happens. And really, it's not even anything about the typo. It's that this typo has revealed how I actually feel about myself. Like I felt like she had caught me with my hands in the cookie jar. Like I felt like this person had said, you have no business publishing. You have no business talking about yoga. You are an imposter. You feel like an imposter. You have imposter syndrome. Yeah, you are an imposter. I'm letting you know. And there's no reason for you to be doing this. And what my reaction to it, though, was what kind of struck me is that I think that at other points in my life, I've been like, I need to do something about this. So my knee-jerk reaction was definitely like, I have to call my editor. I have to figure out like, what are we going to do about this? This is a problem. That's not the answer. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to try to figure out how I can be better or what I'm going to do in the future. I just need to sit with it. And so I found myself actually I'm sitting on the floor of my office right now on a yoga mat in a very similar fashion. I rolled out my yoga mat in my office space, sat down, and I just started breathing. And I just practiced breathing. I wasn't trying to practice. I wasn't like, I'm going to meditate or like, I'm going to do this specific type of breath work. It was literally like the shit has piled on and I am just going to be here. I'm just going to breathe. And in that breathing, it's like that cacophony of thoughts, the ocean of emotions that I think a lot of people run from on a day-to-day basis, it just slammed in on me. And I was like, okay, this is all okay. I'm not going to try to change it. I'm not going to try to do anything different. I'm just going to accept it. And at the end of the day, that is what this book is about. It's about acceptance. It's about just saying, you know what? I'm complicated. I'm messy. I'm problematic. I make the wrong decision. I do things that hurt other people. And all of that is a part of living. That is what life is. It is being all of those things at once. And it's okay and it's good and it's necessary. And at the end of the day, there was really nothing else to call it. Like what else will we call it? It has to be called Yoke.
Well, first of all, I love that story, and I am going to strive for that same attitude the next time somebody emails me about a typo in my book, which let me assure you happens. It doesn't matter how many people read the goddamn thing. It gets through there will be a mistake, and you will hear from a copy editor in the middle of the night, and she will say, I just want to let you know, in the most like passive aggressive, and so that is what I'm going to do instead of writing back, in my own passive aggressive. Thank you so much for making me aware of that. What a careful reader you are. I'm going to breathe. I think that's genius. I think that's
not
fantastic.
A careful reader. Oh my God.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
No. Okay. Please. No, because okay. You know what? No. This is the thing. You're nice. Like you email somebody back. I'm like, how am I gonna email? Like, when am I gonna find time to email this person? So that I'm like, I almost want to email her now and be like, you know what? What you said really impacted me in such a profound way. Like legit, you page 19 or whatever the fuck, I don't remember when we started talking about this, but I'm like, I'm really shouting you out because you changed my life. Or I guess it's like page 1, 2. Anyway, please.
Well, I wanted to ask if you ever like got in touch with that person, and I'm guessing no, but maybe
oh my God.
Up and think of remember.
I really hope so. I really hope that she knows just there have been a lot of people that I think I definitely didn't think that her the email was meant to inspire in the same way. It was really like a solicitation of services, but
yes, I remember that.
But I felt like that she was one of my yoga teachers. She is a teacher of mine. I feel a lot of gratitude to that person. Not enough gratitude to hit her back. Like I feel like she good. I'm good. She good. We're all good. But
So
Yeah.
I want to let people know we're going to be taking questions. I'm sure you guys have lots of things you want to talk about. So please drop them into the Q&A, which is down there. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat as well. The Q&A is where to send your questions. And so, of course, now I have to ask, as a writer, what were the rejects? Okay, what were the titles that you pitched that didn't work?
Oh my God. I wish I could even remember so many things that were like, I hate trying to summarize an idea that is bigger than what words can convey. And as much as like I was trying not to use the word yoga. That was like everything. I was like, I don't want to be talking about this practice so specifically anymore, because I really think that everything is yoga, everything. But I think that as soon as you use the word yoga, people decide whether or not to give a fuck based on whether or not they care about yoga. So that they're like, yoga, yeah, I've done that before. It's stupid. I'm not doing that. Or they're like, yeah, I like yoga. I can see about that. And I'm like, let's just lose who even, that's not even really what we're talking about. Yoga is like a red herring. You know what I mean? It's just something to carry the point across. The real thing is that all of us are complicated, messy human beings. And even if you never practice a yoga posture in your entire life, you can see yourself in the truth that I'm expressing. And I kept trying to think of titles that would convey that idea without being quite so literal. But I don't remember any of the, um, damn, I wish I could. Ooh, all kinds of things about like America and the intersect. It was just so like literal, I think is the best way. And it just did not feel like in line with what we're trying to say. Everything reminded me of like a dissertation title. You know what I mean? Where it's like, there's a lot of words in here, saying a lot of
Yeah,
different things.
there was like words and then a colon and then more words, like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
And
I
your
was like,
publisher
there's
was
a lot.
like, we need something catchy, like you can't have yoga
I
without
feel
you or something like
I
that.
feel like they were like, let's pick one, and then let's just like pick one, and then I'd be like, okay, let's go in this direction, and they'd be like, okay, no, but let's go in this other direction. I'm like, what's
Mhm,
going on? It's
mhm.
such an interesting thing. I don't know. I'm so curious how this is for you, because I feel like writing is such a solitary practice. It's something that like you have to show up for yourself. Like not, it doesn't really, at least for me, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what anyone else says or does or thinks about it. But the process of publishing is deeply collaborative, and it is collaborative in a way that I'm kind of like, this lesson is happening for a reason. This yoga is happening for a reason. So I'm curious if you experience it that way as well.
Yes, I mean, publishing will mess with your head because, as you said, it's incredibly solitary, it's incredibly inward, right? It's just you and the words and your butt in the chair and the blank screen in front of you. And then it's time to publish a book, right? And suddenly there's a team, suddenly there's lots of other people, there's lots of other voices, there's lots of other ideas, and suddenly you have to go from being this like quiet, introverted, staying in your room to being a performer, to doing the song and dance. And I wanted to talk to you. You were a theater kid, which I don't think I knew, and you loved a chorus line, which I also don't think I knew. Because okay, so my daughter is like a total theater kid. So like when you wrote about Dance 10 Looks 3, I was so right there with you. I wanted to talk to you about yoga as a performance, and I wanted to talk to you about like workout, right? Like I want to read a little passage, okay? There are almost as many styles of American yoga as there are practitioners on this planet, and most of them emphasize postural practice over spiritual practice. Like me, most American yoga practitioners pray at the Church of Lululemon rather than engage with deeper yogic inquiry of the subtle body. And then when American yoga practitioners do try to engage on a deeper level, we end up appropriating South Asian iconography and symbology and just generally embarrassing ourselves. Okay, what happened? Like, how did yoga go from being the thing that you talk about, where everything is yoga, where challenges are yoga, where boundary setting is yoga, where sitting with something painful and breathing through it is yoga, and where everything that happens is a lesson that was there, that was sent to teach you something specific for a reason. How did we get from there to here? And how do we move forward toward what I guess you could say is like a more genuine expression of what yoga was always meant to be?
Oh my God.
I
First
know
of all, thank you so
that's a
much for
big,
asking
big
this.
question.
No, it is the question. I mean, I think that I'm trying to figure my way around an answer that doesn't get too weeded. So if I fail in that effort, you were warned, and it is what it is. So I think that, in a word, the reason that it has happened is colonization. I think colonization and white supremacy. I think that we live in a world in which colonization is totally normalized and is a huge part of how the West was won. And I think that because of that, the yoga that has bloomed from what we call America, but really, which is, what has come from this time in history, because American yoga at this point is practiced all over the world. It's not just in America, but that practice is rooted in white supremacy and colonization. So that whenever we come to the practice, very often we don't even realize that we're bringing those tools with us to the mat. So that when you start practicing, it becomes more about making the practice. It's the same thing legit as like filling your house with ancient artifacts, or like putting a bear skin on the wall or something. It's like being able to show, like, look at how I am processing this. Look at how I am, look at how I have understood and owned this thing. And I think that a subconscious desire to colonize is what has created this legacy of of I don't even know what caricature, like make believe yoga practice. Like, there are many different um I don't think it's necessary to be specific, but there are a lot of practitioners who really base their practice in aesthetics. It's about the way that they talk about it. It's about the language that they use. It's about the clothing that they wear. It's about being able to, like, go to India and practice yoga in India and tell everybody that you know that you practiced yoga in India. It's not about actually connecting to your own spirit. It's about putting a bearskin on the wall. It's not about this deeper connection. And I think that I think that was always going to happen, because I think that white supremacy and colonization just turn over and over again. They just show up in different iterations until they are addressed head on. And so, to your point of what do we do, like how do we change this? I think the key is to let the acceptance of this truth be our collective yoga practice. To actually say, I'm not going to be scared to use the word colonization. I'm not going to be afraid of white supremacy. I'm going to accept that every human being is impacted by this. It's not just, I'm saying this, and I'm not just saying like white supremacy, white people. I'm saying that everybody is a part of this system. Everyone is carrying some internalized something. And so a huge motivation for me in writing Yoke was to be really honest about my own internalized racism and my own cultural appropriation, and how I am seeking acceptance of the way that I'm a part of this. I'm not looking at other people like what the fuck's wrong with you? You know, like, I can't believe that you are appropriating this or appropriating that. Like, what else would happen? You know what I mean? Like, we're all a part of this system. And I think that if we can be really gentle with ourselves and practice that yoga of self-acceptance, practice that compassion, see that the pain and the hardness of it, and it's supposed to be difficult. That's the trembling. Those are the, just like in any yoga pose, like a really hard yoga pose, you're trembling, your balance is off, you're sweating, you're trying to find your breath. It's that over and over again. It's just trying to accept the hardness of this particular yoga pose as those trembles, as the sweat, as the breath coming into pace. But I think that if we can actually seek acceptance and really let this be our yoga practice as a collective,
Mm-hmm.
I think that we can move forward together.
Mm-hmm. I loved what you had to say about the yoga of everyday life and just realizing, and I'm going to read a little bit again, finding within life's shittiest moments the same flexibility, strength, grounding energy, and core awareness that you find in extended hand to big toe pose or headstand. This is yoga without accessories, a yoga you can practice without ever stepping on a mat. I loved that so much. And I just, I wish that I wish we could get away from the Lululemon of it all. And I know I've been guilty of this myself. I mean, I remember showing up at a class once and it was like, you know, an hour-long class. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get here. I'm going to get my sweat on. It's going to feel great. And the instructor said, we're going to do hip openers for an hour. We're going to hold the poses. We're going to breathe. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm not going to sweat. Like, what? My heart rate is not doing anything. I'm not wasting an hour opening my hips. And yet that class turned out to be exactly what I needed. And I think that, like, everyone who showed up with, you know, that energy of like, I'm just here to exercise, felt something deeper. And I'm terrible at like the quiet mind part of it all. Like I'm crap at meditation. I'm crap at connecting to my breath. All of the stuff that you wrote about the breath part and getting to that after the pose part, I was just like, that is me. That is me.
Absolutely.
That is, right.
Absolutely.
And it just, but that I think is yoga, you know, I think like that is the idea that like you're going to breathe through something, you're going to sit with something painful. I just, you know, a lot of some of you guys listening to this might know that my mom died last month on Mother's Day, which I was like, oh, nice flex, Fran. Like,
literally,
thank you for that.
Pick that up. Oh my God.
But you know, that was it was not a loss that I was expecting. And obviously, you know, you lose your parents. That's part of getting older. But my mother's mother had lived to be 101. And we all sort of joked that she was sort of pickled in the juices of her own unpleasantness. But she was, right, I know, she was there a long, long time. And I thought I would have my mother a long, long time. And, you know, totally. I had to realize, like, when she died, I was angry. I was angry at her. I was angry at God. I was angry at everything. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I got cheated here. This isn't fair. Like, I want to talk to a manager. Like, I was getting Karen with God. And, you know, and then I was just like, you know what?
Not Karen with God. Yes. Okay, please.
You know, and then I was just like, this is going to hurt. And it's not going to stop hurting anytime soon. And I can't make it stop hurting. You know, I can distract myself. I can exhaust myself. I can, you know, do things with varying degrees of healthiness to them, but I can't make this hurt go away. And what I can do is I can breathe and I can, you know, inhale for 4, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, right? And that's something you talk about in the book. And I love that so much. And I mean, how do we go to these classes of these perfect looking women in their perfect looking outfits? Like, what do we do? How do we?
You know what the thing is? Okay, first of all, I have so much to say about everything that you just said, but I just want to try to stay on topic because I think I will go too far in another direction. But, and actually, let me ask you, did you even finish what you were saying? Because I'm
Yes,
just like,
I
have so
did.
much to say.
I did. I want to remind people to ask questions in the chat because we're going to get to those soon. And I'm sure lots of you guys have lots of things you want to talk about. But yes, that was what I wanted to say. Just the breathing of it all.
So my thing is, I think that whenever you go to a class and there are people in the class who you think like, I mean, did they all get together and like pick the same outfit to do this in? And like, did everybody practice together ahead of time? And like, you look at the teacher and you're like, you look like you were plucked out of an advertisement for yoga. Like, how am I supposed to measure up to you? How am I supposed to do what you're doing? There's a few different things happening in that. And one of them, I think, is that that person, whoever that person is, no matter how much they look like the mainstream idea of whatever, they hate themselves just as much as you do. They are just as uncomfortable. They have just as many problems. And I actually have found that the people who look the most like the mainstream have the most issues with themselves. They have the most body issues. They're dealing with like all of this. I actually feel like in a lot of ways, it's such a blessing to look different because you get let off the hook from feeling like you need to really fit in because it just doesn't seem like an option at least that was my experience. And I think that there's this feeling of not being like no one else is having that experience, or like I must be alone in my shame and my guilt, or I must be alone in my self-hatred. And I think the reality is that everyone is experiencing some form of lacking. And really, because I think it's what capitalism thrives on and really is like lit on fire by everybody thinking that they are insufficient. And recognizing that everyone else in the room is feeling anxious about themselves as well, I think that can help in those moments when you're like, especially when you're in class and you're practicing a posture and you look over and the person next to you is practicing it in a way that is completely different than how you're practicing it. And you'll be like, what am I doing wrong? What's going on? You know, I should like whatever, I should be able to do whatever this person is doing. And it just doesn't even matter ultimately because you are doing whatever you need to do. And it's something that I think is a lot easier to say to children and a lot easier to, it's the sort of thing that you would say to a kid and then you say it to an adult and an adult is like, okay, I know that can't be all of it. Like it must be more complicated than that. No, it's not more complicated than that. It's literally, in fact, it's so much, it is exactly not more complicated than that, to the point where like you are still a child. You are still the child that needs to receive this bit of knowledge that however you are showing up right now is perfect. Everything that you are doing exactly as it is right now is perfect. And this is a low-key remote chance because I think a lot of times we're projecting emotions onto other people anyway, but if perhaps the person that you think is judging you is actually judging you, they are really looking at you and saying, she not doing the pose right, she doesn't deserve to be here, I don't you know, I have a low opinion, blah, blah, blah. If they're really saying and thinking those things, that's what they're saying about themselves. They don't even actually care about you at all. They don't notice you, because everybody is totally self-involved at the end of the day. So it's like they're just saying to you what they believe about themselves. And if what helps me in those moments is to remember that, like, that's just a lot of, I have so much of my own baggage. I can't really be worried about somebody else's baggage. So like they can have that. I'm going to carry my own drama and noise, and they can worry about themselves. There was one other thing that I wanted to say before we walk away from this topic, because you really spoke, I think, to so many things that, excuse me, that I hear from other practitioners, where they'll be like, just like you were saying, like, my mind moves too fast to meditate. Like, I can't, I'm that person. Like, I don't know if maybe for some people their minds are really calm, but my mind is not, and I cannot do this. And either that or some version of like, oh, like, I can't touch my toes. Some people are really flexible, but I can't touch my toes. And I just think, like, literally everybody's body is in a constant state of flux, and you can literally do anything at any point if you devote yourself to it. And as far as mental flexibility and calm goes, I think that the mind is supposed to be chaotic. It's one of the hallmarks of being alive, is that your brain is, if your brain is not moving quickly, then you are not alive. And that is actually like the singular prerequisite for meditation, is having a mind that moves really quickly. So, but within that, I think there's this feeling of like, should I even be practicing if my yoga practice is chaotic? Should I be practicing if I don't know how to do this, if I don't practice in this certain way? And sometimes when I'll look at, especially on Instagram, there's such an emphasis on postural practice and showing the right way to practice a pose. And sometimes I'll think, like, you know, is that really yoga? Is that really how we should be spreading this practice? Is that helping people? And I always get to this place of like, yeah, it is. That's how I came to yoga. I came to yoga 100% through postural obsession. And I think postural practice is beautiful, and it's great, and it leads to a deeper connection with the self. And that connection might happen after decades of practice. It might not be immediately. And that's perfect too, because it is literally all yoga, and everything is where it needs to be.
I wanted to ask one more question before we jump into the Q&As with the audience. So this is, it's the start of the chapter that's called White Guilt. And you're talking, you know, you're on your Everybody Yoga book tour. A Black man stands up and he asks about finding Zen or calm in rooms that are full of white women who've been taught to fear Black men. And what you write is, his question caught me off guard. Usually my Q&As are dominated by questions about how and why a fat person should find ways not to hate themselves, a topic which has always made me feel more circus sideshow than yoga teacher. And I mean, that broke my heart a little, because, you know, I think I speak for so many fat women when I tell you that seeing your body was one of the things that like got me in that room. So, I mean, how do you, why do you feel like a circus sideshow? I think I kind of get what you're saying, but I want to hear you talk about it more. And I want to hear you talk about how we, your loving fan community, can cut that out, because it doesn't sound healthy for you.
Totally. Oh, damn. You know, I think that's my yoga, is to have this experience of really having to look at myself in a critical way. I don't think that anyone else needs to do anything differently. Like, I think that it is my yoga to engage with the legacy that I am carrying. And the legacy that I'm carrying, definitely, it can't be forgotten that my ancestors were enslaved and that our lives were used for sport, we were used for labor, and then we were used for entertainment. And now we are still used for entertainment and for labor. And I think that being able to really see that and be critical of my desire to be seen by other people, and to really see what other people are seeing, whether or not they know it. Like, I think that, again, on the topic of not wanting to acknowledge white supremacy, not wanting to acknowledge colonization, what ends up happening is it being like, well, that's not what I meant. Like, I didn't mean to fetishize you. I didn't mean to exoticize you. And I'm like, I know nobody wants to do something shitty to another human being. Like, you don't want to voluntarily, but we just do. And it's I think that at that point, it's my responsibility as a practitioner to just be present to all of that and to accept all of that. And I have many choices. Life is just choices over and over again, just going through doors, windows, over bridges, and just making choices. And I had a point some years ago where I thought about not sharing my yoga practice on social media anymore, because I felt I was having all of these feelings. And I was like, on top of that, I do feel like yoga and social media do not go together. Like, I think that social media asks you to look outside of yourself for the answer to life's questions. It asks you to care what other people think of you. And yoga is literally saying the exact opposite. It is saying, look within yourself, do not look to anyone else. If necessary, go away from other human beings entirely. Live by yourself on a mountaintop. Do not spend time with other people. And I thought, like, can I really keep living this practice and also be sharing my practice in this way with other people? And what I ended up, the side of the coin that I landed on, that I'm still on, but that I believe is subject to change at any point, I felt like the impact that I can have in other people's lives to inspire them to accept themselves is too profound of an impact to not keep sharing my practice. To your point, there are so many people who I will never meet, whose lives have been permanently impacted by seeing me be honest in my life. And it doesn't even mean that people, like, not everyone, it's not just like fat women who are like, yes, I see you, I can practice yoga. Or it's not even people who care about yoga. It's people who are like, I thought that I couldn't leave my husband because I thought that I had to stay in this one way of being, but I see you doing your thing and just being authentic, and maybe I want to be authentic. It's somebody saying, like, I was feeling like I couldn't apply for that job, but I saw you doing your thing, and now I feel like I can apply for that job. And I just think that being able to, through literally like very low effort on my part, just to be myself on the internet, if that inspires somebody else to be themselves, okay, that's worth it. I'll do that. And so I don't think it's anyone else. I don't think anyone else needs to do anything. I think it's about understanding the impact and going from there.
I think that is, I identified with every single piece of that because I've had the same struggles. I think, like any woman, you know, especially those of us who like don't necessarily look like we could be on the runways or whatever,
Yes.
you know, anytime like I'm in like my bike shorts or a bathing suit, you know, I'm just like, oh, you know, should I be doing this? Like, why am I doing this? Am I doing it for the likes? Am I, you know, but then I'll always hear from like at least one woman, and sometimes lots of women, who are like, you're the reason I got on my bike this morning and I went for a ride with my kids, or you're the reason I put on a bathing suit and got in the water with my toddler instead of just like keeping my cover up on and taking everybody else's picture. So you know, it can be hard and confusing, but at the end of the day, like, I think like those kinds of connections and those kinds of ways of making people feel braver and more comfortable in their own skin, I think that's worth it. And I think that's why I'm here, sorta.
Me
So,
too. Exactly. Literally.
yes. All right. So I want to tell everybody, jump in the Q&As if you have a question.
Yes.
And I want to start. I have a question from Sarah, who says, hi, Jessamyn. So happy to be with you virtually. I know there is a lot of change happening in your life. Thank you for sharing your current navigation of upheaval. What new practices or tools have you added as your yoga evolved that have been essential for navigating these times of great change? And that's a wonderful question.
Oh my
Like,
God.
we've all been through some stuff. So what's new? What's new and different?
You know, I really feel like the pandemic has just been such great practice for everything from here on out. Like, I felt like all of the practices that I set in before the pandemic were practice for the pandemic. And then the pandemic made it where it's like, okay, this is required. Like, every single day, you have to find time for yourself. Every single day. It does not matter. It can be 5 minutes in front of it means really enjoy that exfoliation on your face, because that is your 5 minutes for yourself. Like, really, that's been a practice for me since, I think, at a minimum, the start of 2020, where I've just been like, I have to really lean into these moments that I have for myself, especially when it is just a singular moment. And that practice right now is just so crucial, because shit is moving at a million miles a minute, and it's moving so quick, and it's heart stopping at points. And it's very painful. And it's embarrassing also, and it's like scalding, and it's all just so real. And I think that being able to tap back into myself, not saying like, okay, I have to practice yoga for this amount of time, or I have to meditate for this amount of time, like I have to journal at this time. There are definitely, like, I think there's maybe a militancy to some of my practices at this point that wasn't happening before the pandemic, also put into place because of that. Like in the mornings, I definitely try to find some time for, whether it's tarot or astrology or yoga or meditation or whatever. Like, it is a complete non-negotiable. It cannot happen at another point in the day. It has to happen in the morning. So I will say that there's like a little bit more of like this, I have to do this, that's happening now. But the biggest thing is definitely just really honoring the moments that I actually have for myself, and saying like, I am enough, you know, like in those moments, and really looking at myself in the mirror. I don't know if this is a thing for you or for anybody else, but like, I look at myself in the mirror. I don't really look that closely. You know what I mean? Like I'll look, and then I'm looking at every single part of myself. I'm not necessarily looking myself in the eyes, but like looking myself in the eyes and just talking directly to myself. It's been transformational. So that, and also just really just letting it be batshit, you know, like, I don't know about for anybody else, but I definitely tend to strive for order. I want to put things into their boxes. I want to check things off the list. I want to see progress. And at this stage, there is so much going on that has nothing to do with checking things off of boxes or checking things off lists or putting things into boxes. It's just like, it's just messy in here. It's just real messy.
Mhm.
And some of that stuff smells bad because I haven't looked under that pile in a while. And it's just okay. I'm just letting it be messy. I'm letting it be smelly. I'm letting myself be vulnerable. And I think that not having like these high expectations of how I should be behaving, that is really helping more than anything.
I think that's, yes, that whole letting go of expectations, I think is can be such a freeing thing. All right, this is a question from Emma, and I think this is something I'm also super interested in. How do you marry your yoga practice and writing practice? Does one help feed
Oh,
the other?
oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I think the yoga helps me prime the pump, like just get the gunk out, like actually move through the places where information is stuck in my brain and in my body so that I can just release. And the writing at this point just kind of feels like it's like using the bathroom, kind of. Like if you it's like throwing up, or it's like throwing up or using the bathroom or needing to get something out of you. And then once I actually get it out, then I can see like, okay, what of this is useful in this way, or like what of this is. But I think that the yoga for me, it makes the writing more possible. But I don't even think that it's necessarily like, again, it's not necessarily postures. And I really find, going back to the first question, actually, so much of my like really powerful meditation at this point happens in conversations with other people, especially as my businesses grow and as I am asked to don different hats at different times and needing to show up um, to be strong for other people. There's this really intense leaning into the the meditations that the universe is offering, not just when I'm sitting on a yoga mat or when I have decided that I have time to meditate, like being able to meditate in a difficult conversation or in a moment of doubt, to turn to that as opposed to turning to anger or turning to self-doubt.
Mhm.
I think that is the yoga that really prepares me to, and really that links with all of my creation, not just written creation.
Mhm. So as we wrap up, because I know we're approaching the hour mark, even with our echoing
Yes.
difficulties, and I don't want to keep anyone from the rest of their fun nights. I just want to mention that this book is hilarious and the writing is incredible. I mean, it is like, it is funny. It is so funny. And I mean, your description of the colonic, like, I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but like, you will never watch Charlie and the Chocolate Factory the same way again. I will leave it at that. And so, as a final question, and I think probably I'm not the only one who wants to ask this, but tell us what's next. Tell us what's next, writing wise, yoga wise, life wise, like, you know, crystal ball us.
Totally. So there are many things happening right now. Like We Go High is blossoming. My podcast, Dear Jessamyn, is blossoming. The Underbelly has these insane projects in the works. We have a yoga mat coming out soon, like all kinds of shit. But what has really like upended my life to some degree is that I have lived in partnership with one of my partners for about a decade, and we have decided to transition to us living separately. And that has it has made many different things happen in my life. And one of the things is that my other partner and I have decided to sell everything that we own and move into an RV and travel across the United States and see the country for real. And our plan is to visit all 48 states and visit a different landmark in each state. And we just are going to take however long it takes to do that. So we think it will take at least a year. But we are going on this journey, but also maintaining we have multiple digital businesses between us. So we will be maintaining that and also doing these creative projects that I can only imagine the ways that they will be impacted by this. But on top of that, I know that there is this theme of parenthood that is really heavy for me right now, where I personally I've not ever wanted to have children. And really it's because I had such incredible parents and I see how hard it is for them they're incredible parents. They make me feel like, fuck, is this something I'm trying to do? But my girlfriend is very committed to having children. And I feel like I have multiple children in the forms of every creative project that I have in the world and every business that I have in the world. And those are my children as well. And I think that there is something coming down the pipe. I don't know if it's a book, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there's something about parenthood and what it means to be a parent as a millennial, as a fat, queer Southern millennial, as a Black, fat, queer Southern millennial, and what it means to build a family in America post-Trump.
That sounds amazing. And I can tell you that like we will be lining up to read it because your way of seeing not just yoga, but the world is so special and so transformative. And there have been lots of things like flashing by in the chat about people who took like a class of yours in Oakland and said it changed them forever. People who said you're the reason they took their own yoga teacher training. So a lot of love in the virtual room tonight. Thank everyone. I want to thank everybody for coming and thank you for bearing with us during the technical difficulties. If you would like to purchase a signed bookplate copy of Yoke, there's a link in the chat. You can hit up the Strand for that. Jessamyn, it's such a pleasure. I can't even believe I got to talk to you and I didn't fangirl all over myself, but like, I'm so glad that like you're part of the yoga world and part of the world in general. And I know I speak for all of us when I say that. So thank you.
I cannot thank you enough. I'm such a fan of yours, literally have been forever. So this is like a dream come true. And I'm just going to even stop because this is the fangirling that we were talking about. And thank you to everybody for being here. And thank you to the Strand for having us.
Thank you both so much. Again, apologies, audience, for the technical difficulties, but we pulled through. Amazing event. So again, if you want to buy the book, just follow that link. And with that, have a good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.